the introduction, your introduction. I do not know how I will start or end in this contribution, but the question is, in my speech is that the dissolution of the Supreme Judicial Council is a culmination of trying to control the judiciary. I want to go back. Before the revolution, the judiciary, as you know, was under the control of a council, a Supreme Judicial Council, appointed, headed by the president, and his deputy was the justice minister, and the council, even in its elected part, was under the control of the executive power, since there was what was called the judges of the executive, who controlled the elections and the election of members of the Judicial Council. The executive, as we know, was in control of the judiciary, and for during crises there were attempts by judges in 85 to regain their independence and to get rid of the domination of the executive, but this attempt was aborted through through referring some judges to disciplinary councils or dismissing them. Then in 2001, there was the letter by the well-known judge, the late Mukhtar Yahyawi. He sent an open letter in July 2001 to the President of the Republic at the time, who was toppled later, Zine al-Abidine bin Ali, in which he exposed the extent of the interference of the executive in the judiciary and the extent of the danger. And everyone knows how Judge Yahyawi was subjected to restrictions and harassment and to repression, which led to being referred to disciplinary proceedings in December 2001. Since that time, in 2001 to 2005, we witnessed what was known as the movement of the Association of Tunisian Judges. This movement, which expressed at the time the anger, which expressed the condemnation of the interference of the president in the court on the occasion of the case of the opposition politician, Mr. Mohamed Abou. And of course, following that statement by the Judges Association, the executive moved to interfere in the election of the Association of Judges and imposed judges that were allied with it. And of course, after the revolution, the judiciary began to regain its independence and its healthy functioning until we reached the Constitution of 27th of January 2014. This Constitution that established the judiciary as an independent authority. And thanks to that Constitution, Tunisia enjoyed a democratic system, an advanced system based on the separation of powers, the executive, legislative, and judiciary. And the Supreme Judicial Council occupies the principal position in this in the judiciary as the council that ensures the independence of the judiciary and the good functioning of the judiciary, and also ensures the disciplining of judges and the professional progression of the professional careers of judges. And it was this constitution recognized that the judiciary is an authority that guarantees the proper implementation of the law, and also protects rights and freedoms. The question today is we have this authority, the head of the coup authority is undermining the judiciary through this dramatic move, which he announced, dramatic because he announced it after midnight when Tunisians were asleep, and he announced it also from a place that symbolizes repression. And yes, indeed, it symbolizes the protection of the law, but also symbolizes the police that for Tunisians, for Tunisian citizens, for a certain period had been responsible for their repression. And of course, the Supreme Judicial Council moved after the closure of its headquarters, also in a dramatic and shocking manner. The police closed the headquarters and then left because they did not want the identity of those officers to be revealed. And even when the Interior Ministry was asked, the Judicial Council President asked the Interior Ministry how they could close the headquarters, and no one was able to answer who had given the order to close the headquarters of the Supreme Judicial Council. What we have witnessed in the last few weeks really is a tragedy. It is a setback for the revolution that, as I said, has brought us a constitution, this constitution that guarantees rights and freedoms, the constitution that stipulates the universal principles of rights and freedoms, freedom of conscience, freedom of belief, freedom of protest and expression and association, etc. This constitution today has been suspended by the head of the coup authority. And what makes matters worse is that after taking control of the executive as a whole and also the legislative as a whole today, he is usurping or seeks or attempts to, because we do not know what the current situation is, he is attempting to usurp judicial authority. Yesterday, we heard the Justice Minister who declared that the President did not dissolve the Judicial Council, but today we are surprised that the President himself, the head of the coup authority, came out to say that he has decided to dissolve the Supreme Judicial Council and replace it with some other body. We have a statement from the executive of the Supreme Judicial Council which rejects this decision and rejects the body that would replace it, because it is an elected body, an elected authority, and what the president has done violates the law. In Tunisia, we are living in under the law of the jungle, because the decision taken by the head of the coup authority is not based on any legal basis or constitutional basis. Even Article 80 of the Constitution related to exceptional measures does not stipulate the dissolution of the Supreme Judicial Council, and today he is governing through decrees, and the President, who through his decree of September 2021, decree number 117, today he is ruling through decrees, and he wants to use decrees to form a new judicial council in the way he wishes. And of course, today, all the actions being made by the head of the coup authority are invalid because Article 70 of the Constitution does not allow him to govern through decrees, because this article does not accept when Parliament is dissolved. And everyone knows that the Assembly, Parliament, is only frozen. Legally, it still exists, although it is frozen as a result of the decision of the head of the coup authority on the 26th of July. Today, in reality, we live under a very dangerous situation. All experts of law, particularly constitutional law, do not know how they would teach this subject at university, because everyone knows that Article 80 does not stipulate the dissolution nor freezing of Parliament, but rather says that Parliament should remain in a state of permanent session. This article does not allow for the dismissal of the government, whereas the head of the coup has dismissed the government. Also, this situation is, in fact, has led to the concern, in addition to concerns inside Tunisia. Everyone knows that most, if not all, political parties, most human rights organizations and organizations of civil society condemn what the head of the coup has done and do not accept it. There is resistance that is growing through citizens against the coup and through the movements of many parties and associations that are active in civil society. Also abroad, we have seen the reactions of even the Secretary General of the United Nations through his spokesperson, who expressed the Secretary General's concern over the decisions made by the President and undermining the Supreme Judicial Council as the foundation for rights and freedoms and the foundation for a state based on the rule of law and institutions, and the foundation or one of the pillars of democracy. Also, the Human Rights Commission expressed concern and fear that the Tunisian government is foregoing its commitment to international treaties. As you know, Tunisia has ratified the international treaty on rights and freedoms, which requires countries to protect rights and freedoms. And the Human Rights Commissioner expressed fear that these decisions undermine the foundations of democracy in Tunisia and the foundations of human rights, which Tunisia had ratified. We all know that the Constitution stipulates that the international treaties are above national laws and decrees. So Tunisia today is in a situation that violates completely international commitments and treaties, and what we fear is that there might be sanctions against this regime and against the Tunisian state. And of course, we, as law experts and as lawyers, we will stand, we will resist against this situation. We will be faithful to the blood of the martyrs because the independence of the judiciary is part of the Constitution of Tunisia of 27th of January 2014, which came through the sacrifices, thanks to the sacrifices of men and women of Tunisia who sacrificed daily so that we live free in this country, and we must resist this coup. Of course, we rely on peaceful resistance. We do not have any police or army. We also depend on the institutions of the state, which, whether it's the police or the army, to be part of this struggle. We are in a struggle against someone who has abrogated the institutions of the state. The Constitution states that the security forces should be Republican and the army should be Republican, and they should be neutral. They should be neutral. That is, they should stand, these institutions should stand equally, and they should not be biased, whether it is to the opposition or the rulers. This is the situation of Tunisia today. Tunisia, which was called in the West the Jasmine Revolution. There are external forces that were not pleased, that were not happy with the achievements of the Tunisian people through their revolution. The Tunisian people who gained their freedom, these forces wish to abort this experience, this Tunisian experience, so that it does not expand or reach its neighbors or through the Arab world. And of course, we condemn any interference, and we all know that there are Gulf countries that are interfering in our country in order to lead this pioneering model to fail. Yes, there have been difficulties and obstacles over the last 10 years, but in all of those, but we should always take lessons from the difficulties we faced, and Tunisians are conscious that there were things that were not working well. There are reforms that must be introduced in the judiciary. Yes, the judiciary does need reforms, but there must be political will. And I say that the head of the coup authority who rules today, for more than 2.5 years, he has been ruling, and in each media appearance and in each of his speeches in which he addresses the people, he talks about the judges and the judiciary in using the word of corruption and other labels. There are some exceptional cases, but the judiciary as a whole is not so. There must be reforms in relation to the infrastructure, in terms of the conditions of the courts, the working conditions of judges. In some courts, you may not even find restrooms. There are cases, accumulated files and cases. In one day, the judge could look at 300 to 400 files. Reforms should be introduced to give the judiciary the status it needs, the budget it needs, because justice and the judiciary are the foundation of civilization. We hope that the political class and the Tunisian people as a whole take lessons from this crisis, the coup is surely going to fall. The Tunisian people are free and they will not accept to submit to a new dictatorship after having experienced the bitter